Welcome everybody to a bonus episode of Pinfalls and Passports, and we decided to come online quickly today to give a quick update and get everybody's thoughts on the rumors that are rife at the moment. The big question is, will Seth Rollins cash in his Money in the Bank contract at this Summerslam? So, as I'm sure most of you are already aware, Seth Rollins reportedly sustained a knee injury during his match with LA Knight at Saturday night's main event. It was confirmed that he was going to undertake an MRI. Some details have been a little bit sketchy. I think he'd mentioned that there was too much swelling, so they weren't able to do the MRI at the time, which I think kind of medically sort of makes sense. But there have been lots of rumors also started by our friend Dave Meltzer over at the Wrestling Observer newsletter saying that this is a work. Seth isn't legitimately injured and he's going to be coming in to cash in his Money in the Bank and surprise us all at SummerSlam. Now, we know that Dave isn't always accurate with the information. He's definitely been thrown off recently by WWE. Now, today I am joined by Katie. I'm joined by Dorkchop. I want to get you guys' thoughts on, do you think this is a work? Do you think this is a legitimate injury? And if it is a work and Seth does cash in, who's he going to cash in on? And what are the possible ramifications moving forward? So let me come to you first, Katie. What are your thoughts with regards to the Seth Rollins injury situation?
Well, I've just looked up right now. Can you get an MRI while you have swelling? And as per radiologyinfo.org, an MRI is typically performed to diagnose or evaluate knee pain, weakness, swelling, bleeding in the tissues in and around the joint. And based on what I know, as well with MRIs, I don't think there is such thing as too much swelling. Now, that aside, I've always thought that this thing is a work. I think that maybe his knee has been bothering him, and I think that they have decided to create this story to protect him for SummerSlam for a very big cash-in. I think we are going to see him. I think we will see an attempt. But I don't think it's going to be when we would all expect. You know, we're all thinking he's a Raw guy. He's going to cash in on Saturday. I think he's cashing in on Sunday. We got Cena and Cody. They're in a street fight. They're going to beat the living pulp out of each other. And whoever the winner may be, I think it's going to be Cody. I think that Seth is just going to walk in, do a curb stomp, and finish Cody, and will be the new champ.
Okie dokie. Well, you do raise a good point, Katie, about that MRI, because I heard somebody say, I was listening to another podcast the other day, and they were saying, I remember when I had this, and it's absolutely right about the swelling. But I remember I broke my ankle quite a number of years ago, being very, very silly on one of those kids' trampolines in the garden, showing off very drunk at 2 a.m, broke my ankle. And I kind of left it for a couple of days before I went to the hospital. And my ankle was swollen to the size of an elephant's leg. And I still got that MRI scan done to clearly show that my ankle was completely snapped in half. And they just put a cast on for time being. So I think you raise a good point there. Dorkchop, though, I want to come to you. What are your thoughts? Is this legitimate? Is this a work? Even if it is a work, do we think he's going to cash in at this SummerSlam? What do you think?
I'm of the thought that this is a work. This is a work. Because if it was legitimate, they would have announced an MRI immediately and a surgery. There's just, been no details since the injury, except for the fact that, he could be out 10 to 12 months. We haven't heard anything about a successful surgery. We haven't heard anything about an MRI. And it leads me to believe that there's going to be a shock return. The obvious cash-in attempt would be against CM Punk, just based on the animosity between the two. I like where Katie's head's at, that Cody and Cena could be the victim of a cash-in. I also, we're discarding one possibility here, and that's, what if he cashes in on Gunther? we're all just counting on a CM Punk win here. Would that fuel a face turn for Gunther?
Well,
Ultimately it comes
good.
down to he's going to cash in on CM Punk, just to basically screw him the way that's Punk screwed Drew McIntyre. Symmetrical storytelling.
Excellent point. So let's go through the options because there are a number of options here, and let's talk about which ones we think make the most sense. So, Dorkchop, you raise yourself. You think he's going to cash in on Punk. Now, I want to bring us back to just before this injury to Seth Rollins. Seth faced off with CM Punk in the ring, and he said directly to his eyes, "While I'm around, you will never be a champion." So makes absolute sense that if CM Punk was to beat Gunther, for instance, yeah, he may be a champion for the best part of about 30 seconds, but Seth Rollins returns, curb stomps Punk, and then reignites what we know is a very big rivalry, which could lead to some huge matches, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, and possibly even drag it all the way through to WrestleMania 42 in Vegas. That's definitely sort of one option. What are your thoughts, Katie? Do you think he could cash in on Punk? Do you think Gunther himself? Well, I mean, let's say, how does this make Gunther look though? If Punk gets beaten if Gunther gets beaten by Punk, and then Seth cashes in on Punk, who's the winner here? What does this do for Gunther?
Well, I mean, Gunther's cheating right now, but I wouldn't really say that he's looking good right now. I mean, every time he's on the mic, everyone's chanting, "You tapped out," right? Like him losing to Jay at WrestleMania, even though he's the champion now, that that's a really big deal right now. That the fans, this many months later, are still calling back to WrestleMania. This may follow him for the rest of his career, right? So I mean, I definitely don't think that even if there's an unsuccessful cash in, I definitely don't think he's a winner in any sense. In my heart, I really, really, really want to see a CM Punk title reign one last time. His days are numbered. Let's be real. He's getting older. I think he deserves it. It makes sense. It makes sense for the story to have Seth come and screw Punk. I definitely do not want, though, to see Punk getting the same treatment that Drew got. But, it does make sense. It does make sense for the story. But at the same time, if we have Seth going over to Cena and Cody, and he wins over there, now we have the Bronze on Raw, and we have Seth on SmackDown, and then we have pretty much that whole faction capitalizing and dominating WWE, right? So we'll see.
We will see. So let me tell you my thoughts, because I think if Seth is going to be cashing in, he's not going after that World Heavyweight title. He is going after that undisputed title. We know that Seth's had a fantastic reign already. He built up that WWE Heavyweight Championship, and as tempting and as much as I want to see Seth versus Punk going into Mania, maybe they'd even end that up as a retirement match at some point for Punk if he sort of loses as his last sort of opportunity. There's a lot to sort of build around there. I don't see Seth Rollins going for that title. I think Seth wants the big one. He wants the undisputed title, and I can see him cashing in on the winner of John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, and that winner is going to be Cody Rhodes. So Cody Rhodes for me is the one that's getting curb stomped, and Seth Rollins is going to be the champion if this is in fact a work. And then what we can see from there is perhaps the redemption arc story for Cena around here, turning sort of the back end of his retirement sort of run into more of a sort of babyface sort of role. Perhaps he has a little feud with sort of Seth sort of after that for a while to sort of get him back on the side of the fans. What are your thoughts with regards to the possibility of him cashing in on night 2, Dorkchop?
It makes sense. Street fight, no rules. There's a distinct possibility we see Braun and Bronson run down and just beat the ever living holy hell out of both of them. Because what are you going to do? You can't disqualify it. So then Seth wanders down and takes his sweet time cashing in. He could be even on crutches at this point. And he just comes down with Heyman behind him and the briefcase, says, I'm cashing it, and in a triple threat. That was the other part that I was thinking of for Saturday night too, is what if he cashes in during Gunther and Punk's match? And then again, same scenario, have Braun and Bronson beat up Punk and Gunther, no disqualification at that point. And Seth, either way, Seth, and I think that's the more logical conclusion there, is that, Seth cashes in on night 1, but night 2.
Well, let's go back to night 1 quickly, Doug. So I want to ask. So we've got another match on night 1. We've got Bronson and we've got Bron Breaker versus the Tribal Chief, the OTC, and Jey Uso. Now, do we see Bron and Bronson beating Jey Uso and the Tribal Chief? Do we see Roman taking a pin against these guys here? Because
Absolutely.
if we don't, and then Seth turns up later on the show, aren't they going to be asking, well, where the hell were you, Seth? If you were fit and well and healthy, how come I just got speared by Roman Reigns and Superman punched and 1, 2, 3'd? So there's a little bit of confusion there. But Katie, I bet you've got some thoughts with regards to that. What do you think is going to happen in that match?
Well, I mean, they've really been humanizing Roman, right, as of late, right? Like he had, prior to, WrestleMania, he had all this aura. He was undefeatable. I mean, despite dropping the titles at WrestleMania 40. But, he was booked as a god, essentially, as an undefeatable god. And after that, they've very slowly been humanizing him. I mean, like the man got his shoes jacked on Monday, right? And in typical WWE booking, what we see is if the faces are getting the crap beat out of them on the weekly shows, typically we see that they are going to win on PLE. I don't think it's going to go that way, though. I don't think that Lynn and Jay need this win. I think it is beneficial for the Brons to win. I think they're going to win clean, and I think Roman is taking that pin, which would then lead to the rumors of maybe Jay a little bit, right? But I think they're really going to with the humanizing Roman. And I mean, let's be real. He's here at SummerSlam. Is he going to be at the next PLE? Probably not. And realistically, we are probably not going to see him again until closer to Survivor Series.
Maybe. No, I think you're right. The go-home math suggests that Roman and Jay should be picking up this win. But I got to be honest, I do have a little sadistic side of me that really wants to see Roman Reigns get tsunami'd 7 times. And that's kind of a bit of reasoning about why we don't see him again for another few months. I want to raise one more possibility with you guys. And this one is another rumor that's sort of been out there, maybe a bit wild, maybe a bit speculative, but there are some thoughts, there's some chatter going on in the IWC that what if Seth is actually injured? What if he generally is injured? We know he's had problems with that knee before. He could be out for 12, 18 months, and they've got that Money in the Bank briefcase sitting there with, I think, who we all understand to be probably the future of the WWE, certainly a future champion, a future undisputed champion in Bron Breaker. If Seth is legitimately injured, with Mr. Heyman pulling some strings around there, what if Bron Breaker was to cash in that Money in the Bank contract at SummerSlam, immediately legitimizing him as a massive, huge star in WWE. Dorkchop, what are your thoughts on the possibility of that happening?
I think it's very good. If Seth is indeed injured, I think either way, coming out of this weekend, Bron Breaker is going to look like a star, even more so than he already is. I think during the tag match, he's going to probably pin Jey Uso, and then go on. And if Seth is injured and he cashes in, it's going to be this weekend.
Katie, what are your thoughts? You think let's just hypothetically say this. Seth is out. He's injured. He's not going to be around for the next 18 months. He's not even going to be around for the next Summerslam, which coincidentally, weirdly, happens actually before the next Money in the Bank. So Seth's got quite a bit of time to cash in this Money in the Bank contract. I don't know if we've had a situation before where we've actually got 2 Summerslams where you could potentially cash in your Money in the Bank contract before it expires. But if he is on the shelf for quite a period of time, could Bron be the one taking that contract and cashing in this weekend?
Honestly, I think it's too early to tell, right? I think if they're going to pull that trigger, they're not pulling that trigger right now, right? This injury just happened a month ago. I don't think they're going to pull that trigger because, I mean, if it is a legit injury, they say 9, 10, 12 months. He can come back in 6. We've seen it done before, right? I think if they're going to pull that trigger, let's wait until Elimination Chamber. Let's wait until WrestleMania, right? Where we know like it's been a long time. I think there's enough to the story between the Brons really dominating Raw. And I think Bron also needs a little bit more time getting that push, right? Huge for his development and his story. I don't think he pins Jey. I think he pins Roman. If you pin Roman, you are like times a million aura, right?
Yeah.
I think it'll go so much further for him and to really legitimize his star power, really. So when that time does happen where he does cash in that Money in the Bank, it's legit. And he is a proven star.
Yeah. And, it's very possible that Seth isn't injured and this is a work. And we know that WWE have done this in the past, but because of the chatter, because of the Meltzers exposing the business and saying, look, they knew what the sort of plan was, it's very possible that Seth isn't injured, but they're going to hold back a little bit and maybe just wait a bit. Maybe we won't see, maybe Seth isn't injured, but they're not going to pull the trigger on the surprise return right away. Maybe they're going to do it in a couple of weeks. So either way, certainly sets up some really interesting possibilities, lots of fantastic options moving forward. Do we get a Punk versus Rollins final sort of career versus title match, maybe at WrestleMania? Do we have a sort of Rhodes, sort of Orton sort of feud going in? If Gunther really sort of gets beaten here, is it because he's going to win the Rumble and then get the undisputed title shot at WrestleMania? Or if, Rollins wins it or Breaker wins it, do we get a sort of mentor versus prodigy sort of match when Rollins finally does return? Certainly lots of options on the table, but I am going to put you guys on the spot right now. I want to ask you first, Katie, who is going to be the World Heavyweight Champion coming out of SummerSlam?
CM Punk. In my heart, it's CM Punk.
Who is going to be the undisputed WWE Champion coming out of SummerSlam?
We're going to have 2, I think. I think Cody is beating Cena, but then I think Seth is walking right in and taking that off of Cody. So those are my picks right now.
Okay. And over to you, Dorkchop. What are your thoughts?
CM
Same questions?
Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship, and then Cody Rhodes for the WWE Undisputed title.
Fair enough. Well, I am going, because I am sick of betting against Gunther, I'm going with Gunther to retain that World Heavyweight Championship. I am going with Cody Rhodes to win the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. And I don't think that we're going to see Seth cash in that Money in the Bank quite yet. But listeners, we'd love to know your thoughts. Please let us know in the comments. Either way, I know we're all looking forward to a fantastic weekend, our first ever 2-night SummerSlam. So I hope everyone enjoys SummerSlam, and we'll be back next week with all our reactions and all our reviews with regards to everything that happens over this weekend, Friday Night SmackDown, SummerSlam weekend, and of course, Monday Night Raw, the fallout from the 2-night SummerSlam. I want to thank Katie. I want to thank Dorkchop for joining us today. Thank you so much to all our listeners joining us for this bonus episode of Pinfalls and Passports. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Take care.